letting the world know what you do. And I'm talking about so crazy that there was a time where you actually had to take up a job selling soap.
That was my journey. So I feel that wearing that green t-shirt and selling little soap was part of my journey.
Social entrepreneur, educationist, and someone who epitomizes everything that the Smashed, Bashed, Yet Not Bashed podcast stands for. I'm talking about grit, I'm talking about perseverance, I'm talking about not throwing in the cards irrespective of whatever life throws at this particular person. This is someone who has been down and out, someone who has been up there, lost it all, and is coming back, and is now coming back with the intention of giving back. Ladies and gentlemen, trust me, this is one episode you want to stay in for and stay in all the way.
Have you ever been knocked down and found it hard to get up? Have you ever been knocked down and bounced back to come back even stronger? Hi, I'm Gaurav Bhagat and you can call me GB, and welcome to the Smashed, Bashed, Yet Not Dashed podcast. A fortnightly podcast where I speak about persistence, perseverance, and overcoming the odds to come out ahead.
So Vandana, first of all, thank you so very much. You flew in specially all the way from Calcutta to be on the 33rd episode of the Smashed, Bashed, Yet Not Dashed podcast. And it's so great to have you here in the studio with us today.
Thank you so much for having me here, and it's more of a privilege for me to be on this show. And thank you for getting me on this show. I am honored and humbled by this.
Not at all. Like I said, knowing your story and the path that you're now on, I think it truly is something that more in the world, really need to know about. And we have a very devoted set of, listeners and watchers, since there's also going to be a video. And I'm sure they will be inspired by all the work that you do, as I have been, and so many others who actually follow you closely.
I think you are an inspiration for me. And even though you are my kid brother, but I think you are more of an inspiration, and the work that you are doing is remarkable. I'm just a drop in the ocean.
No, always very humble, and we'll put on record for all our listeners and watchers a lot of the creativity that came, in my life, the board games and the early stuff that I did. Vandana is the inspiration for that as well. So we will talk about some of those things as well, and watch out for that as well. So Vandana, a Delhi girl at core, born, and brought up over here. Talk us through the early days. I know you were in the toniest of South Delhi neighborhoods. You grew up in Panchil and Defence Colony and New Friends Colony and all the places people aspire to be. So obviously a great childhood. Let's talk about the early years.
So yes, I'm a thoroughbred Delhiite, modernite, proud modernite actually. Studied in modern school, Barakhamba Road, Vasant Vihar also, as well as Humayun Road. We started with Humayun Road.
Yeah.
So that was my childhood. So when we grew up in the 70s and 80s, life was very different, and Delhi was very different. It's totally something different today.
Of course.
But that time we didn't even have any transport. We never had a car, or we had to go by bus or carpool.
Right.
And the only form of transport that we had was a cycle. And we used to go from New Friends Colony, cycling all the way to Sundarnagar to have chaat.
Yeah.
And we used to go over the ashram flyover.
Yeah.
And today we can't even think about that, because we'll just get mowed down.
True.
And so that was life in the 70s and 80s and growing up in Delhi.
Right.
And so that was amazing, and lots of good memories of childhood.
Right.
And of course, lots of friends, and from school, they are still my friends, and they are my strength.
Of course.
And great to have them in my life till date.
And something to be said about that. I mean, I know you used to call yourselves the Super Seven, and it's amazing that through life's ups and downs, you are all still together. You're all still, looking out for each other. And I think the bonds that some of you have are closer than the bonds that you have, with your respective, spouses, or, in some cases maybe like ex-spouses. But it's amazing, right? You guys, from the age of maybe like 4 or 5, have still had that bond, even so many years later. Quite fantastic.
Correct. So 7 seems to be my lucky number. So set of 7 friends and set of 7 brothers. That's also been there. I'm the
Right.
only girl in the family, and
Right.
1 real brother and 6 cousins.
Yeah, yeah.
And all boys. So that was also another number. So which also was amazing. So
Yeah.
that growing up in Delhi with the brothers was also another story, which was great fun.
Of course.
And they used to play with me, and all I played was the boys' games, and they destroyed my dolls and all my girly things.
Yeah.
So that was
Yeah.
also part of the memory
Yeah.
which was there.
Yeah.
So yes, 7 has been a lucky number for me. And growing up in the 17 and 80s, I also remember that time we couldn't afford too much, so we used to go to Nerula's, all of us,
Right.
the friends, and we used
Right.
to have a hot chocolate fudge, which costed maybe 8 or 10 rupees, and it was shared by maybe 10 of us. So that was also growing up during that time, which was wonderful.
Yeah, simple times indeed. And you look at kids today and the aspirations and things that they demand or desire. It's quite mind-boggling, compared to what it was like growing up in the, like you said, 70s, 80s, and
Yes.
early 90s as well. Super. So again, going back to those times, and you mentioned this part about where you had this environment where there was you were the only girl, and then of course with the brother and the cousins, you were doing a lot of stuff that the boys had to do. So was it almost like some of you perceived as like the tomboys, where going out there and playing cricket and doing things which girls perhaps weren't doing as much?
Yes, of course, that was there.
Yeah.
Playing with all the boys and all the boys' games. Not only cricket, it was even 7 stones and
Pittu, yeah.
gulli danda. I don't know what you would call that in English, but that was also part of our growing up.
Yeah.
And really enjoying, that moment with the boys.
Right. And of course, today you're in the space of, education and extremely creative with, what you do, with the initiatives that you run and how you involve, the student community. But come to think of it, when I go back and I think about, when I was, of course, 10, 11, 12 years old, I would see that you were big on, on sketching, on drawing, on Snoopy characters.
Oh, yeah.
You were the person behind all the birthday parties, and some of these birthday parties were grand for the time, right? Everyone would still remember the birthday parties that, we used to throw at home. But you were the architect, and the organizer behind it. So truly, the event organizer, event management agency / creative agency, even before anyone knew what that was, right? Where did some of that inspiration really come from?
I don't know, it just came naturally. I think I love children, and you were the kid brothers, and I love to be part of your journey. So I don't know, it just came naturally. Never thought about it.
Yeah.
It was just part of me. Until date, this comes naturally to me. I have my neighbors' children who just roll into my house and they want to play with me every day. And I'm like, oh, is this a school going on in the evening after school? It's quite amazing, but it's fun.
Yeah.
So I think that just comes naturally. I really don't know how.
Yeah, awesome. And for our viewers and listeners, we're going to talk about this, in a little bit, where Vandana is doing some amazing things in Calcutta, where she's now based out of in the space of education. She runs the La Maternelle School. She's also doing stuff with Gyankosh, all things we'll talk about in the later part. But just connecting the dots in terms of how that early journey has led to, the path that she's on today, and, the give back piece as well. So coming back to a slightly later part, in towards the end of school, when you were in a perhaps more difficult time, right? And we're talking about, yes, you may have had the toniest of homes, great lifestyle, with a family that, was in the heart of corporate India doing some really big things. But there came a situation where you truly started having your first smash bash moments. And I'm talking about so crazy that there was a time where you actually had to take up a job selling soap at Defense Colony Market, right? Like, let's talk about that time.
So life had a lot of challenges, but I'm glad it had these challenges because it made me more focused and more responsible in life at a very young age. But that's okay. Challenges come, you can either be bitter or you can get better. So I chose to be better because I think that's the only way out in life. And my mom always used to tell me that, try not to throw negativity into the universe, because the more negative thoughts you throw in, the more negative you will attract. So be careful about your thoughts, and I always try to remember those words.
Awesome. Yeah, so true. And today you look at, Mr. 10X, that's Grant Cardone, he would always say, no negativity allowed here. But it's true. These are things which are, passed on from generations. And your mum was, someone who was extremely wise beyond her years. Of course, went through her own challenges with health and wellness and all that. But she would do the satsangs, and she would always come back and be such a big influence even on us, in our lives growing up as well. So
she
true.
was an epitome of strength.
Yeah.
She was really an epitome of strength, and I think I draw my strength from her.
Awesome.
Because again, she had so many challenges, but
Yeah.
she never gave up.
Yeah.
And in those times,
Yeah.
so I think that's amazing. So that's what I'll tell everyone, don't be bitter in life.
Yeah, no, I love that. Bitter or better, the choice is yours, and block out the negativity. I think that's so important, especially in the times that we live in today, where there's so much noise around, the pandemic and the news and the media. Everything just blows everything out of proportion, and people are just influenced in a way where they don't need that in their lives right now. They just need to have conversations like these. They need to have just positive influences coming through to them. So again, thank you so much for sharing.
Thank you again. Thank you for making me sit here and talk to you today.
Not at all. So, post this, yes, you're 18 years old, you're thrown in the deep end, where you once mentioned to me that you were, actually having to be a salesperson, at a counter outside defense stores. And you said the impact on you has been that even today, now you're based out of Calcutta, when you see someone at the Tollygunge Club, or the Saturday Club, and they're selling something, you always go and you buy something from them just because of the connect. And that, okay, this is something that I did for 75 rupees a day back in the day. So it's almost, your give back in a way as well.
Yeah, that was my journey. So I feel that wearing that green t-shirt and selling Little soap was part of my journey. Yeah. And I feel that now when I see someone selling something somewhere, even if I don't require that product, I still go and buy it.
Awesome.
Because I feel like they should be encouraged, because I've gone that path. I've gone through that path. So I feel that it's a good thing to do.
And we spoke about early mentors, and of course, right after this, you said, okay, I'm going to explore something in the travel space. You start working at a travel agency. Eventually, you get involved with Cathay Pacific. You're now traveling the world, spending a lot of time in Hong Kong and back. The importance of early mentors, especially at this point in your life. How important were mentors, and what are some of the things that stand out for you at that time?
Okay, so going to my early journey of working, the first job that I had, of course, was at someone known to me. And it was something which was, I had to move out of that comfort zone for certain reasons.
Yeah.
And I'm glad I moved out of that comfort zone. That made me think ahead, and I had to explore more options.
Yeah.
And so then I went on to other avenues, and I was really fortunate to get some jobs at some travel agencies. And finally, I landed up at the Cathay Pacific, Delhi. A very glamorous job, and I had a very great mentor, Ashima, who guided me and handheld me. So that was also wonderful. So I've been very fortunate, and I got the opportunities, and life just kept giving me directions, and the paths kept getting made. So that was amazing.
Right. And of course, in due course, married fairly early, and I'd say fairly early even by those days. I mean, of course, I think you were probably about 23, and then life had different plans for this Delhi girl, okay, who is now going to be making her way all the way to Calcutta. Yeah. So let's talk about that.
Yes, so I was the first amongst the Super 7 to get married, and my friends thought that it was way too early, and they said, my God, what are you up to? So then I just said, marriage is a gamble, and let me take on this gamble. We'll see from there. Yeah. And it's been 34 years now.
Awesome.
And I'm still there in the same space. So that just speaks.
Lovely. And by virtue of being in Calcutta, now there is a family that you're marrying into, which is into education. Pami's mum, of course, was the principal of the school at the time. And you're now expected to come in and be an educationist yourself, do your formal education in this space. What was that like? I mean, surely it couldn't have been easy, but you were someone who would be more like beating the system kind of person, and now you're going to become the system. So how was that?
Totally different, like totally a flip of personality. So coming from a glamorous job, wearing a sari,
Yeah.
which,
Yeah.
I was not so comfortable with.
Yeah.
But again, a friend of mine handheld me and taught me how to wear a sari. So I was like, okay, fine. Again, one more hurdle we overcome.
Right.
And yes, I completed, I further got educated in Kolkata and under the able guidance of my mother-in-law, late mother-in-law, Dr. Mrs. Manjeet Paul. She was a pioneer in the field of education and she had handheld me, so that really helped. And today what I am, I owe a lot to her because if it wasn't for her, I wouldn't be here. So yes, I adapted myself to the change and it was totally a different role.
Yeah.
But again, it was nice.
Right.
It's been a great journey because it's been very fulfilling.
Yeah. So let's talk about Mrs. Paul for a second, because she was the person who founded this school, and I love how you would always say it's not a big school, but it has a big purpose, right? And you would say things like small school, big purpose. So what were some of the things that really stood out for you, when you were under her wing, under her mentorship? Because she was priming you for the role that you are in today. We're going to run this entire operation. So tell me a little bit about what was that like, being with her, things that stood out for you, working with her. What were some of those things that really stood out?
So I was really fortunate to have, again, a great mentor and teacher who handheld me, literally. And she nurtured me and made me what I am today. And she was very strict. So that's what was good, because if you're not strict, you're going to just be in that comfort zone again.
Right.
And then you're not going to take on,
Yeah.
the reins, and you're not going to move ahead.
Yeah.
So I think that was very, very important, that she just was shaping me up to take on the legacy and carry forward her name. And I'm trying to do that to the best of my ability.
Yeah.
And God is helping me.
Of course. And we're going to talk about, even what happened during the pandemic and how hard it got for education as a space. And you did some wonderful things during that time as well. But truly, I love the fact where you spoke about legacy, because I think, sometimes people are just so involved in the day-to-day. They never really think about, the long-term impact of their actions, however small that action might be. And I think it's amazing what you're doing in terms of, carrying forward the legacy in Calcutta and just keeping this going. So hats off to you.
No, it's a role.
But that's it. It couldn't have been easy. Okay. And we're going to talk about, getting people onto your cause and all of that, because let's fast forward to, just a few years back, a time which was perhaps one of the most difficult times for many of us, which is when the pandemic came. And, you were sharing some stunning facts with me in terms of the number of schools that, really started closing down at the time. But you didn't cut back at all. So what was it like first? Okay, let's go back to April 2020. The lockdown's been announced and everything's going to be shut for, well, at least 40 days. What were the first thoughts that came to your mind then?
I had this panic attacks. I'll be very honest about it, and I want to share that. I had anxiety and total panic attacks, and I didn't know what to do, because I didn't know how would we carry on and how would the school carry on, because we have been catering to this aspiring class of children.
Right.
So how they're going to pay the fees and how are we going to tide over? It was really one of the biggest challenges of my life.
Right.
I thought I'll give up. I really thought at some point I can't carry on like this.
Yeah.
But again, like I said, there is some magical force, some blessings of elders, or some, like, I have a lot of faith in Almighty. And I think I always felt that God, or whichever that superpower is, held my hand once more. So that was amazing. So you have to actually have the faith, and one day at a time, one step at a time. And somehow, again, we were able to bounce back.
Yeah. And it's amazing that, never once did you actually cut salaries of your staff members. In fact, you mentioned that you went ahead and paid bonuses where other people were saying paisa nahi. And we look on big organizations, big schools, big trust funds, and you run an establishment which pretty much has no cash reserves, right? Whatever it is, has been depleted because of the work that you do. I mean, a lot of people who come and study at your schools are coming from, the underprivileged, places in society, or they don't have the means. Many of them could not even pay their fees. But you said it's okay, irrespective of what's happening with them, I need to still step up and take care of my people. So brilliant, right?
So that again, I'll give credit to my staff, my team, because they were very, very cooperative. And Urmila, who's my right-hand person at school, she said, "Ma'am, don't worry, we'll cut our salaries, we won't take the money, just let's carry on."
Right.
So, and plus the others also. The team was brilliant and they just supported me wholeheartedly. So, I think that helped. And of course, by then my friends, my batchmates, they understood the situation, and one of them, Kirti, she took the lead and she reached out
Right.
and she did a fundraiser, and somehow we just managed. I don't know, again, it was just something which just happened somehow.
So the Super
And
7 to the
everything-
rescue as well.
Yes,
Yeah.
and everything just fell into place, and I was able to manage my life. And of course, not only her, and looking at this movement which started, there were so many people. I can't even name them. If I start naming them, this episode will go on and on.
Of course.
And people I don't even know, I have not even met in different parts of the world. I have a cousin called Vikram who passed away. His friends from Japan, from Singapore, from I don't know where, I can't even name the places and the people, and unknown people. They just, because the cause was so strong, that they just came and helped us, and we didn't give up. So we just carried on, and now we look back and we say, wow, we haven't shut the school, and we are still catering to those children who want to change their lives. So it was really something brilliant. Brilliant.
Yeah, and ladies and gentlemen, think about it. 21,000 schools have not survived the pandemic. That's 21,000 schools. Okay, and here is a school which was bootstrapped. There's no investor, there's no reserves, but there is purpose. Okay, there is purpose, and there is just that fire and passion to say we are not going to give up. Okay, Vandana just mentioned about how the team came together. So when we always say it's the teamwork that makes the dream work, I mean, such an important message that goes out over there. And while she's being super humble, okay, she's being super humble, and there's a lot of humility, of course, in her. If you've known her long enough, you'll actually find that as well. But she's not taking any credit herself. But it is the person on top. If the person on top doesn't, inspire, okay, and then yes, like I say, you downplay it. If the person on top is not inspiring, you will not even start a movement, okay. So the movement, and you have to take a lot of credit for that as well, is being driven by you. People see you for who you are, and which is why they're drawn to your cause. Today, if there is something that's lacking in the world, and I always say this, the biggest disease that we have today in the world is a trust deficit. You just don't know who to trust. You don't know who to trust with your money. You don't know who to trust with your time. You don't know who to trust with your energy. And I think if there is someone who stands up for a noble cause and says, listen, I'm genuine and this is what I have, you will have people being drawn to you. So I think that's what you've been able to achieve.
So
as well.
that's, I think, very nice of you to say that. But I just think that, yes, when people have faith in you, maybe you are just you. You are just you. I mean, it's just natural. I guess you want to give back and you want to do for the society. Maybe because my journey has been tough also. So I feel that I want to help everyone that I can, so that they can fulfill their dreams and change their lives.
Yeah.
So.
And it's amazing what you do at the school, because like I said, even though, may not be hyped up, but the fact that, you're winning prizes at a national level, okay, at least at a state level, where you're beating some of, the most reputed, schools of, of the region. You get awards for creativity. You're invited on to, panel discussions. You have your annual day events at really nice locations where I'm sure these parents come and they feel very proud about what their children are doing and where they're a part of as well.
Yes, so I want to give them the same opportunities an XYZ school would give. Why not us also? Why should we be deprived? So I try to give them the best of best. And, I just want to share with you, I have a lot of ex-students on board.
Yeah.
They help us in the school, whether it is a designer or whether it is somebody in the computer, department.
Love it.
And we also have a lot of teachers who are ex-students of the school.
Wow.
So, that also helps, because they also have this love for their school and the passion that they have in them to give back to their school.
True.
So that itself is also amazing. So we get them together and we have a team of lots of ex-students coming up to help the school. in which way they can.
Yeah.
So
And I think that's amazing. And you know, that again brings me back to the point that obviously the experience that you've created for them while they were a part of the institution, you know, there are so few. I mean, we went to great schools, but do we really think of going back to our school and giving back in some capacity? Maybe financially, perhaps yes, but emotionally, maybe not. Like not in terms of, you know, time, not in terms of thinking about, oh, can we be faculty and, you know, or can we actually go back and contribute, you know, in this way like your students have. So again, I think credit goes to you, you know, to your mom-in-law, the faculty that you've had over the years, that they have instilled those values, that you've had these people, despite coming from situations which are economically challenging, right? They have to sometimes take a call between the path they need to follow on the financial side, but then they still come back because they're emotionally invested. And again, I think hats off to you guys for that as well.
it's all about these small things you do in life. I think the little things count. It's not the big things.
Agreed. And I agree. And, you know, we were having this discussion and I said, you know, you'll have all the money in the world, but you haven't been able to give back and change some lives. What's all that money worth, right? Maybe a point to think about as well. So again, you know, there is this time for pivot. So you pivoted in your life several times. You know, one was when you came out of school, you know, of course, you know, with the job in Hong Kong, moving to Calcutta, starting the school. And then the pandemic brought about another opportunity. Okay, and this is gyankosh, and I know it's something you're very passionate about. So let's hear a little bit more about gyankosh, because to my mind, this changes everything. So tell us about gyankosh.
So gyankosh was born during the pandemic, and a friend of mine who is the CEO of NASCOM, Kirti, she told me something which is stuck in my mind till date. What you focus on expands. So if you focus on a negative thought, only it's going to get negative. And if you focus on positivity, it's going to get positive. So actually I've written that and stuck it on my desk, and I look at it every day because that's my mantra in life. And when this pandemic struck, of course there were a lot of negative thoughts like I shared earlier. But then one fine afternoon, we sat, me and my team. Again, I feel my team is very important to mention, because it's not me alone. It's always my team and I. As they say, me comes after. So we just thought of a plan of doing something. We had the time. There were no children coming to school. And we had a lot more challenges because most of our children didn't even have smartphones, and financial issues. At that time it was more about survival and not even about phones and education, and you know, everything was a mess, as you know. And the largest sector which suffered were children, actually. That is the area which really suffered because of learning disabilities, because they lost out. Of course we are making up for it, but whatever it is, they did lose out. But anyway, then we thought, now what to do? We can't just sit and keep feeling sorry and sit and do nothing. We have to move ahead and look ahead, because past is past. Whatever's happened is happened. We have to think of something. So we just started making video lessons. And we started reaching out to family members. It could be even friends and even teachers. And we started writing the scripts of the lessons, and we started giving these scripts to people, and whoever was good with their voice said, okay, you know, start recording your voices and give it to us on the WhatsApp. And they sent the voices, and then we started putting animation to those voices. Because we wanted to make it interesting, you know, just a voice on WhatsApp and the children are going to get bored. As it is, there's so much of anxiety and so much of fear of the unknown, and so many losses, and so much of you know, negative and depressive phase of life, I'll say. So we said, okay, let's make this interesting. So some cartoon. Again, maybe the cartoon drawer in me, or maybe the cartoonist in me came alive. And we said, let's put some animation into these videos and start making some short videos. By then, children were sorted with their smartphones, and then we had this WhatsApp group. And we managed to get them together, somehow, you know, put them together. Then came up these video lessons, which were really attractive and interesting. So we started sending, but then we realized that our phones started getting jammed, including my own. And rather, when this pandemic struck, I want to go back to that moment.
Sure.
I didn't even have one phone number because the phone numbers were in school and we were not allowed to go out.
Wow.
So I'm like, how am I going to do this? And I had a phone which was really in a bad shape. I didn't even have a phone. And then I requested my neighbor that, do you have a spare phone? So he was just so sweet. He had an iPhone and he said, just take it. And so I took his phone, and till date I have that phone. He says, I don't want it back. He's such a sweet chap, Manish, who lives next door. And he just gave that phone to me without any, nobody gives their phones, and he just gave it and he said, okay, go ahead. And till date I'm using that on my WhatsApp group.
Right.
So the phone came, a SIM card I had, and then the phone numbers. We were like, how are we going to get the phone numbers?
True.
We can't even get out of the house.
Yeah.
Then thought of things, and then I remembered, oh, my ID card fellow, he has the data of everyone. Let me call him up. Email, send, somehow managed. Then I have a doctor friend, Shabnam, used her car to go back and forth somehow to school and picking up stuff which we needed. Yeah. So, I don't know how things happened. So, these people just came from all over to help, because again, the cause was so great.
Yeah.
So going back to gyankosh, so once we decided to do these video lessons, our phones were getting jammed, and we are like, what are you going to do? After some time, we'll just have to keep deleting. And such nice videos, what are we going to do? Where are we going to save them? So we said, okay, fine. Let's get a website designed, and we'll start uploading them on that. That's where Gaurav contributed also, because we had no funds. As it is, we had no funds, and then we are like, oh, going in for a new venture, and we want to design a website. In those times, we are like, what are you up to, boy? What are you up to? So Gaurav contributed, and I have another friend, Seema Bagaria. She contributed. My friend Shabnam, she contributed that we buy a new laptop because we needed a better laptop to get the animation in order. Correct. So somehow again, magically, things happened.
Amazing. And the cool part is that, you're starting with, again, trying to solve a need, a pressing problem that's actually there. You're not starting the reason why people start businesses today, where they start thinking, oh, what's my exit going to be? Who's going to come in and invest in me? It's not that. You say, okay, there's a problem, this problem needs a solution, and I'm going to do whatever it takes. Bootstrap, where you're picking up a phone from a neighbor, okay, you're just about managing to put enough resources to get a laptop. I know none of the core people involved with the project were IT people. I remember having those conversations, and you're like, I don't know how to do this. And I'm saying, maybe you want to check out, like a Teachable or, one of these things. I have no idea about how these platforms work. And then again, you had people drawn to the cause, where you had people who were, again, your alumni, people who were your students, and saying, ma'am, we're here. How do you want us to help? Right? So again, so heartwarming to see that happening. And again, coming back to the point where you're saying, it's not about, oh, gyankosh is going to be the next Byju's, right? You're saying, gyankosh is here to solve the problem for the people I really care about. So again, purpose versus, commercial interests.
Correct. So that's how this was born. And now today we have about 2,000 video lessons uploaded on this website, which are being used by our school children, and we can provide them to others also. Right. Because we've already mapped them, and we've already, finished according to the board and the syllabus and everything.
Fantastic. And that's 2,000 videos.
2,000 videos.
Wow. So done with an iPhone and one laptop, and that's where it all began. Super.
That's how this gyankosh was born. So this is the journey of gyankosh. Right. And so like I said, you said that a lot of people just came out and came and helped somehow. Again, magic happened. Again, some hand somewhere.
Amazing. And I think that resource, that you've created there and you continue to add to is going to be invaluable. And people are seeing this. Now you're already seeing people who are saying, okay, Vandana, tell me more. Right. The reason why I also want to come on the podcast is because I just think it's such a wonderful story, such a wonderful journey, and the world needs to know. I know, and you're extremely camera shy, and you say, I've never been on camera before. And I said, listen, I had never been on camera before till like 2 years ago. So the point is that it's about letting the world know what you do. Because I think, the more people you spread out to and the more word you actually spread, the better it is. And again, people would always say, you can be the best, but if you're not the best known, it doesn't matter. Okay, again, it's a Grant Cardone line. I'm just borrowing that. But ladies and gentlemen, what I will do later towards the end of this is also put in the links below on where you can connect with Vandana over email, where you can get details of the Lama NL school. If you want to contribute to her cause, by all means. If you want to check what Gyankosh is all about, do check it out. they're not an expensive resource. It's not, one of those, new age companies which just come in and saying, oh, X number of, thousands for every subscriber that you bring on. They're not doing that. I mean, it's just meant to go out there for a bigger purpose. So if you're listening in, if you're watching in and you want to help, you know where to reach me, but I'll also put in Vandana's coordinates. And if you can help in any way to make this grander, please do. So coming back to people, again, wanting to come and help, right? You now have a very interesting offset of gyankosh where it's also the English language piece. Okay, where, I mean, everyone knows that English is going to play an important part of, people's futures. There are many who don't have access to that. Tell me about what's happening with Ritika right now, because I think that's super fun as well.
Okay, so that's also something very interesting. Again, growing up in the 70s and 80s, I'm going back and forth. I don't know.
Yeah, perfect.
So Ritika and I were the first business partners at, we started a library, a books and comics lending library, and that was our first business venture called Yours, Mine and Ours. That was during school time. And that time, like I said, again, the cycle was put to good use, and we used to go cycling in our colony and give the comics and books to everyone. And of course, I don't think we earned much out of it, but whatever we must have earned, we must have eaten or treated ourselves from that.
Of course, yeah.
So, and at that time, there was no Swiggy genie. So I think we were the genies of our time. So that was great. And of course, then life went different ways and we got married and whatever. But I was in touch with Ritika, and so in Feb 2022, that's this year, she got in touch with me, and she had this wonderful cause, and she told me, Vandana, I want to do something for the staff of my children, and I want to give them some good English communication skills, some kind of backup with that. So we explored a few options, and she and I talked about it a couple of times, and so she wanted my advice, and then I gave her my input. And then one fine day she called me again and she says, Vandana, why don't you and your team in Kolkata take this up?
Awesome.
So I said, well, the cause has touched my heart, and the cause is great, it's brilliant. Again, something which I have been working on, so definitely I want to take this on. So we took it on, and we've been catering to about 50 children and all her staff members. It could be even caddies at the golf club. Ritika Modi plays a lot of golf at the Delhi Golf Club, and she's got a lot of staff members and their children, their cousins, their friends. It's just growing, and right now it's the most sought after program. Amazing. And it's done on Google Meet. It's an online program, so I have people from Meerut to Modi Nagar to Rajasthan to different parts of India. They are attending this program. So it's really, really, again, something magical. And also, not only the children have been there on this journey, which is just so humbling, because they come from varied backgrounds, and they are just the passion in them and their drive in them that to change their lives is so brilliant. And that's what just keeps me also so involved in this program, because I am just so honored to be a part of it. And I really thank Ritika for giving me this opportunity and for this program. Again, it was again a path which was new to me, but the journey has been wonderful, because I got mentors who have been from my cousin in Dubai, our cousin in Dubai, and my best friend from school, Radhika Dagar, who lives in Chandigarh, and she's introduced me to Mrs. Chadda. Then Radhika's daughter, Ananya, she's also involved. So somehow, the best of best resources that I have got is just brilliant. Again, it's just beautiful. It's a beautiful journey.
Yeah, wow. And it's amazing, and you have your hand in so many pies. And so you've got the school, you've got gyankosh, okay, now you've got the venture with Ritika. And then you're thinking, okay, I still have free time. I don't know how you do it, but maybe I can do a little bit of bringing back things I learned from my grandmom and my mom, and let me start a small kitchen as well. So we have Vanny's kitchen, which is not officially launched. I think this is breaking news, but you're also doing that. I mean, how is this even possible? I mean, how do you manage so much?
Okay, so that was also something just started in October 2022. A friend of mine called me and she wanted to order some chanas, which is my famous chanas which I make, the Punjabi chanas. And she's like, I want to order, but I want you to do it professionally.
Yeah.
I'm like, professionally? Okay, then I said, okay, why not? Let's try it out. So then tried it out and it was brilliant. And I have these neighbors' children who come to my house who call me Vanny, Vandana and Granny. So it's a Vanny, Van
Nice.
and a Granny. So they call me Vanny. So I said, okay, the name should be Vanny's Kitchen.
Nice.
And so I have my hands in various, not pies, I'll say various jars, because now I'm making my granny's pickles,
Wow.
which is the gobi shalgam ka achar,
Yeah.
and I'm making gajar ka halwa, which I just brought for your father from
Awesome.
all the way from Kolkata,
Lovely.
from Vanny's kitchen and not Granny's kitchen.
Yeah.
I can't be like Granny.
Yeah.
Because Granny is Granny.
Of course.
But
Of course.
I remember sitting with Granny and writing down these recipes, and so I I had that interest in cooking, and took it on from saag, makki ki roti, and anything that is ghar ka khana. So this new venture is a new thing which I have started. So again, my passion. So it's very important to pursue your hobbies and your passion, and one of them, of course, is cycling for me. Again, going back to childhood and reliving those moments. And my husband went and bought the cycle for me. So when he went to the shop, they asked him, how old is your daughter? And so he just told the height and whatever. So whatever he could figure out, and he bought that cycle, and it was a perfect cycle.
Yeah.
So whenever I have some issues, I just go cycling and I cycle my worries away. So that's a very important thing in my life. I just keep using that line. I just cycle my worries away.
Love that. Cycle your worries away. And so true, so important to have passions, because sometimes, even life without passion, is it really worth living? And it's amazing that, you're able to do so much and, still make time to pursue your passions as well. I mean, be it cooking, and when they talk about this movement of passion to profession, who knows? I mean, today Vanny's Kitchen is a small setup where there's you and a helper, but tomorrow, who knows? Maybe it sets Calcutta on fire. So Calcutta listeners, if you're listening in, Vanny's Kitchen, not being advertised yet, but it will be soon. And if you want amazing chola bhaturas and gajar ka halwa and also makki roti, sarsoda saag, I mean, you don't get those in Calcutta, right? Vanny's Kitchen coming soon to a home near you. Yeah, I love that. So, truly someone, I mean, who's had so much adversity, and of course, there's so many things that you don't want to mention, on camera and off record, but people, who known you or follow you, they've known the journey that you've been through. And, this is the 33rd episode of the Smashed, Bashed, Yet Not Dashed podcast. And when I was just thinking back, I'm like, who's the one person, the one person who epitomizes smashed and bashed like no other, but yet is just out there playing to win every day. And that's you. So thank you so much, for, of course, like I said, again, being here. To our viewers and listeners, and we have a fairly dedicated, set who listen to the podcast, what would be your pieces of advice, to them when life deals you a bad hand, when it's one of those, days, weeks, years, decades, maybe even generations of bad luck? What is it that you want to tell them that, hey, this is my advice to you?
So I'll just say, don't give up. Like everybody says that, don't give up, because there's always a second chance. Life always gives a second chance, and trust me, the second chance is even better than the first one. So just carry on one day at a time, and nothing is constant. Everything changes. My life has changed so much, and my journey has been a roller coaster. But, as you go down, you even come up, and everything just will change for the better. Again, don't be bitter. That's very, very important. And just carry on. And sometimes you may lose your path, but it's all about finding that path back. So just don't give up. That's my message to everybody. Because I've had a lot of challenges, and it's not been a bed of roses. But that's okay. That's all right.
Yeah, and you said everything makes you stronger. Every instance that's happened in your life, it's happening for a reason. It's happening for a purpose. So there is this one thing that you've always had, very close to your heart, and your mission, where you said you want to keep education affordable, right? So in this world where all costs are up, there's cost of infrastructure, staff, everything is just going through the roof. How are you still being able to do what you do in the way that you do?
So the cause of our school was giving good English medium education at an affordable cost. So that was the main cause that the school was formulated on. So we have actually stuck to that, and till date we are trying to follow that. And yes, again we provide a lot of scholarships, and in this pandemic we reached out to more and more children because there were so many stories and so many challenges that these people faced, and they came to us and we just felt really terrible for them, and we tried to help them. But of course the resources were little and everything was very tight. So again, I was very, very fortunate to have my family and friends who reached out, and they just contributed, and they are sponsoring children, and now I have, I think, more than 40 people who are sponsoring children. And it's just growing and growing, and because the need is so much, as well as the cause is so important. And of course their faith in me and their trust in me, I'm very, very humbled with that, because they have been just really, I'm very, very blessed to have such people in my life.
Lovely. Yeah, it reminds me of the Kevin Costner movie Field of Dreams, where he says, "Build it and they will come." So truly, you're building these initiatives, these causes, and that's drawing good people towards you. So true. What is the future hold? And we're going to come to a concluding couple of questions. So, what does the future hold for you? What does the future hold for the businesses you're in? What are your thoughts when it comes to that?
So I just want to do meaningful work, and I don't think too much of the future. I just take one day at a time and one step at a time. But definitely want to work with people who are passionate about this cause. So if I get the opportunity and the path is made, I think I would like to work with people who really, really feel for this cause. So that is what the future is for me.
Love that. And concluding question as we wrap up today, what will be Vandana Paul's legacy?
Oh, that's a tough one. So I'll say K Sara Sara, whatever will be, will be. The future of these children is what is important, and if I'm a part of that journey, that's what it will be. So K Sara Sara, whatever will be, will be. I'm not a good singer.
Love that. 34 years in education, just getting started. Ladies and gentlemen, Vandana Paul on the Smash Bashed Yet Not Dashed podcast. Follow this amazing person. Okay, she's very media shy. She's not on social media too much, but let's also get her to step out and blow up some of those causes, because one of those people who's doing fantastic things. And I'm not saying this because she's family. I'm not saying this because she's the reason why I would have perhaps created the first set of board games at the age of 16, when we sat and played a whole bunch of board games, prior to her moving to Calcutta. But I'm just saying that this is one person who is genuine, authentic, has been all of those things that we've spoken about in today's podcast, had a fantastic journey and continues to give back and will do even more. Thank you so much, Vandana. Appreciate having you here.
Thank you so much for having me here. I'm really, really honored today. Thank you.
Honor was all
and
ours.
Wish you all the best in your journey ahead, and God bless you with much success. Thank you.